Welcome, gardeners. I'm Michelle.
I'm Ray. And I'm Sunny.
And we're from Grants Pass, Oregon. And you're watching the Urban Gardener channel.
Now let's get growing!
So, all right, welcome all you wonderful gardeners for joining us here on Let's Get Growing, your weekly gardening live cast here on the Urban Gardener channel. My name's Enoch, and I'm going to be your host this week. We have a really great show for you. Our featured guest this week is Jere Gettle of Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. And we have joining with us for our channel of the week, Anne Marie of Bloom Where You're Planted. It's going to be a really great show, so stay tuned for these great guests that we have today. And if you're joining with us here live, be sure to get over into our chat box and join with everybody here on the live chat and let us know what you've got growing on this year, as well as ask any sort of questions, leave some comments. And if you have any questions, we'll get to them during the show. Be sure also you can leave questions while we're interviewing our guest today for our channel of the week, and we can ask those questions as well there too. And also, be sure to give this live stream a big thumbs up, hit the like button so that we can all see that you're here, as well as subscribe to the channel and subscribe to the channel so you can follow along with all the Urban Gardener gardening adventures we have here on the channel. And also be sure to share our show with all your friends and your garden friends out there and your different garden groups. Let them know that we are out here doing a really fun show, getting to interview all sorts of really great gardeners in the gardening community. And it'd be really awesome for you to share with all of your friends. And one last thing too, be sure to go check out our website at letsgetgrowing.live, and be sure to go down to the bottom of the page there too, and you can sign up for our seasonal newsletter that we'll have coming out here pretty soon. And it's great to have all of you with us here this week. It's as you can see, it's baseball season. We're in opening weekend of baseball, so I thought I'd put on my baseball gear for my favorite team this weekend. I hope you all have a favorite team and everything you're following as well. I love baseball. It's kind of my second passion in the springtime. When baseball's getting started, I know it's also time to get the garden going and get down in there and start getting things going and growing. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been busy this week, actually, getting my hands in the soil and finally be able to get all of the different garden spaces that we have all prepared for planting out starts and seeding out seeds and doing all sorts of stuff. I'm doing as much as I can, as I've mentioned before on the show. I'm not too sure exactly whether or not we're going to be staying in our garden spaces for this season. So I've been doing a little bit of what I can. I'm, repairing some things. I'm, getting a lot of the weeding done and just kind of doing some stuff. And we'll see here, hopefully real soon, I'll know exactly what's going on with all of that. And then I can really just get in and do all of that gardening. Plus, I have this really cool space over at my friend's place that we set up last year. They're these big 20-foot by 40-foot plots on a corner lot that my friend has right on the corner of his neighborhood there. And we've got these big plots. We've been weeding and getting those all ready. We've already got garlic popping up, spinach popping up, and we've got a whole bunch of other things that we're getting out and seeding and planting and doing everything there as well too. Now, I did put out our very first garden journal video on the Urban Gardener channel. So hopefully we'll be continuing to do that each week. We'll hopefully have those uploaded on Fridays. And that's where you can just kind of follow along with all of those things that we're doing outside of the studio here in all of our garden spaces. So go check that out. Go check out our video for our first garden journal of the year. And that's where I'm kind of showing you all those things I just explained. We're out there, getting things ready, kind of getting our mindset prepared. The weather's still kind of got some really cold nights. We've still hitting some freezing temperatures, so I'm just kind of getting myself prepared. We're making a list, and we're getting all the sort of things that we know we need to get done so that we can be fully ready to get growing when it's time. And again, too, doing some repairs. I had something I had to take care of as far as what happened out in my alleyway garden space with one of my really cool garden beds with this really cool like cattle panel vertical trellis that I have. One of my neighbors had to remove a tree and kind of really just messed up that whole thing there, but we take care of that. I show you all that in that garden journal video too. So be sure to go check out those videos on Friday as well as the one we've already got out too as well, and check out all those things that we're doing. And then hopefully here this next week, I'll go and make a video and show you all that space that we have over at my friend's place, and show you all the things that we've got growing on there. So those are some really cool things that are going on for us here on the Urban Gardener channel. I hope that all of you are getting an opportunity to get out into your gardens as well. Just kind of depends on where you are in the country right now. For all of you in the South, you've probably been gardening and growing and doing all sorts of stuff. And for us, a little bit more to the north, we're still dealing with that winter weather and kind of just anticipating all the things that we get growing here real soon. So hopefully things are moving along in your garden spaces as well. So be sure to go ahead and get in the chat box there. Let us know all those things that you've got growing on as well too. So again, we've got a really great show. I'm really kind of excited about this. I did want to let you all know ahead of time too, though. We are a live show. Most all of our guests are here with us live, except for today is going to be one of our first featured guests that's pre-recorded. We did this recording with Jere Gettle from Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company just a little while back, and had a really great interview with him. We talked all about all sorts of things going on with the company and all the different things that we want to hear here on the show. Jere's garden story and all that sort of stuff too. So stay tuned again for that coming up here a little bit later on the show. But let's go ahead and get started now with our fun segment with our friend Mark Boucher Colbert. Let's get in the garden with Mark.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of In the Garden with MBC. You're here in the garden at Noble Rot with me, Mark Boucher Colbert, otherwise known as MBC. Today, you can see we've made some progress in the season. I no longer have my scarf and winter hat on, but it's a typical cloudy, gray spring day, still cool. We're still struggling to get any series of semblance of 60-degree days. We just can't seem to do it. So just continuing to focus on the cool weather crops up here at Noble Rot. Pea shoots, some lettuce under cover, some kale, that sort of thing. Today I want to show you some of my favorite tools. I primarily use all hand tools up here at Noble Rot. You can see I'm leaning on a bed right now. We have these 42-inch high beds. This is custom gardening. This is the Cadillac of gardening beds, 42 inches high. It's made out of steel for durability up here on the rooftop, but just lovely to be gardening at this height. When you have a raised bed, you don't really need to be messing with the soil too deeply. My school garden, of course, I'm using, where we garden in the soil, I'm using more long handle tools, shovels, digging forks, etc., etc. But up here, it's all about the hand tools, because I'm mainly just doing light surface preparation on the tops of these beds. So let's jump into it. I'm going to show you some of my favorite tools. Some are definitely gardening tools, others are not, and yet still they're effective. So let's go. Number one has definitely got to be this Japanese hand hoe. I believe it's called Nijirigama. I don't know what that means, unfortunately. It could be the name of a place, it could be something in Japanese, but this is a very versatile tool. It's very strong. The Japanese obviously are known for their metal work over the centuries, and they have an ability to just churn out really strong steel that can hold a good edge. Obviously, in culinary realm, their knives are legendary as well. But I like this. You can see the hoe is at an interesting angle to the handle, so it allows you with a pull stroke to skim just under the surface of the soil. So here's the action. I'll hold it like this, and I just lightly drag it over the surface, and it's interrupting weeds as I go. It's just bringing them right to the surface, just cutting them off at the knees, so to speak. Weeds don't have knees. I think you know that. But anyway, just taking them out. And it's also, because of its strength, because of the strength of the blade, it's also good as a jab and pull to create holes for transplants. So a lot of times when I have my little soil plugs and I'm putting stuff in that I've grown in my grow room, I'll just jab, yank, pull, and push back in one swift motion. Almost like you've seen those tree planters. If you've seen those guys and gals up in British Columbia, they'll have a big sack of saplings, and they just have a special tool where they jab, yank, drop, fill. It's all one smooth motion. So you can get really going with this in the loose soil of a raised bed. The Jere Gettle, definitely a tool I would not be without. If I had to just have one tool at the Noble Rot, this would be it. Coming in at a surprising number 2 is this unlikely tool. This is a mud knife, I believe it's called, for drywall. When you seal the seams, or you close the seams, the gap between the seams of 2 pieces of drywall when they abut, you want to put this stuff called mud, this spackle, on there, and then this smooths it out. This thing is amazing. One of the things that it can do, first of all, it levels a bed. So if I've used the hand hoe to get rid of a bunch of weeds and taken out a bunch of stuff, it's kind of a mess. It's kind of a pockmarked mess. So this is beautiful for just leveling. It has another unanticipated effect, and I'm not sure why this exactly happens, but the blade catches all the light material, all the weeds, all the fibrous stuff, and has an action of collecting it, so that I can then just pull it all off in one ball or one bunch, and it really does a marvelous job of that. So it gets all the fibrous stuff out. So if I'm making little lines, which then this comes in handy for, I'll literally draw lines in the soil, and if I need them to be a little wider, I can go in at an angle, at a bevel, and create furrows for my seeds. This is very important for planting arugula, mustard greens. This is how we do it. Make a number of rows, just define them a little bit, and then go in and lay down the seeds there. I can plant them at whatever spacing that I want. But this is very handy for that. So for leveling, for picking up debris, and then for making furrows, extremely handy. I love this tool. So this is just a 12-inch mud knife. They come in different sizes, and I have some different sizes, but up here I have this 12-incher. Fits well. I tend to choke up on it like this and grab it by the blade, and then it's a fierce, between these two, I'm gonna I'll take on anything with these two, right? And I'm ready for battle. I could just be satisfied with these two. Of course, I have like 10 more, but I gotta show you those two. All right, I have the array of typical garden tools you'd expect to have a cultivator and a trowel. These are just particularly heavy duty. This one's Oxo. I like that brand. This one's Corona. These are both like heavy duty tools that aren't going anywhere. I've broken a bunch of trowels over the years, so it's worth investing in something really solid. So by solid, I mean, see, there's no welding joint really. It's all one piece. That's always a sign of a good tool. Anything from a rake down to a hand tool. When you have solid one-piece construction, this too, there's nothing plugged into wood. It's just one solid piece of metal with a rubber grip. Indestructible. This is going to last a lifetime. Smaller trowel. Sometimes you want a finer hole. This Oxo one has some beefy serrated edges here that are really useful. See that? You got to cut through some roots. It's also useful for dividing plants too if you need that. And then I have a smaller, slimmer profile one. That's all the standard stuff. This is an interesting kind of a scoop trowel, also with the serrated edges. This is called the little dirty little digger. It's kind of a soil scoop. It's also pretty useful. Okay, here's another favorite tool. This is the Cobra. I love this thing. This is one of my favorite tools. It's got a kind of a flat head. You can see the resemblance to a king cobra. Just again, a big indestructible beefy tool, good for loosening lower layers of soil. I use this a lot with kids because kids really can't break this thing. Kids have broken a lot of my tools. I do gardening at a school, and it's a great test to find out if a tool is durable or not. Give it to some kids. They're bound to whack it in ways you never predicted, and you'll find out which tools are really durable. This is a great one, the Cobra. Let's keep going here. I love this this is a takeoff of a Japanese sickle. I use it, a grass sickle. It's used for, cutting at the horizon, getting out grass. It also it's got a terrible serration on the edge there. I mean, terrible by fearsome. And it'll just cut through stuff. You can use it like a saw. I also like it as a weeding tool. If you use it as a weeding tool, you're gonna lose some of the sharpness. So you may wanna keep one for the grass and one for the ground. Or after it starts to dull a little bit, as a cutting tool, you can then send it into the soil. But I like dragging it through the soil. It interrupts weeds. I can kind of go below the surface too. It's not angled quite like the Japanese Jere Gettle, but it still does great work under the soil, just under the soil surface. All right, moving right along, I've got a couple of cutting tools. I really like these sheep shears. They're very handy when I need to cut twine and sometimes even for some small pruning. And then for heavier duty stuff, I've got Yale Parafelcos, great standard hand pruners, and a leather case. Let's see what else we got. Kind of winding up here. I like, again, not a standard garden tool. This is kind of a concrete float, right, for smoothing concrete. After I seed, after I've gotten a smooth seed bed with my mud knife, then I'll come and lay down the seeds. Sometimes I'm broadcasting them, scattering them, and then I will tamp them down to form a solid connection with the soil and to kind of reduce airspace in the soil. I'm not really trying to compact the soil per se to a depth, but I am just trying to get good contact with the seeds and the moist soil so they germinate well. That's a nice, useful tool. I've got myself a good stainless steel scoop, very handy for fertilizers. Got what's called a dibble. This is kind of just like a metal finger, basically. When you don't want to ruin your fingers, you just stick this in the soil. Great for things like leeks or small plug transplants. You just want to make a little hole, go right on down. And then let's wrap it up with a strainer. I soak a lot of my seeds and pre-sprout them indoors, especially at the cool time of year. So today I'm going to be doing some carrots. I've got the carrots in some water overnight, and then I pour them through when I get on site, and then I will seed them. Sometimes I'll add a little dry coconut fiber to this to get them to not stick, and so I can spread them evenly. Anyway, this is kind of a wrap up of some of the hand tools that I use. Love to hear what some of your favorites are. To me, a good tool is worth its weight in gold. And again, when you find and start selecting tools of high quality, you know these things are going to be with you for life. So wishing you great gardening. I'm hoping that pretty soon that's going to turn into a sunny blue sky. But for now, we're stuck with gray. We're still going at it. Hopefully you're going at it wherever you are too. Good luck with your gardening. I'll see you next week in the garden with MBC.
All right. Another great in the garden segment from our friend Mark Boucher Colbert. And really cool, he gets to garden up on top of that rooftop there and do all that sort of stuff. So again, thanks to him for that. And also for all of you who are joining with us here in our live stream, I want to go over real quick on our Facebook group and our Urban Gardener page. I post each week a gardening question of the week. And I want to post that up here for everybody here to jump into our chat box and answer our question of the week. Do you have a favorite plant or vegetable to grow in your garden? So let us know one of your favorite plants or vegetables that you like to grow in your garden, and we'll talk about those coming up here in just a little bit. But now it's time for one of my favorite segments, our garden stories. Now, this week's garden story comes to us from viewer Mike Schneider. Mike is a proud grandpa and a hobby fisherman who is gardening in his St. Louis, Missouri. He got started growing vegetables about 10 years ago when he wanted to see just what he was capable of growing. His favorite things to grow are bell peppers, jalapenos, tomatoes, cucumbers, red leaf lettuce, romaine lettuce, collard greens, mustard greens, and kale. He loves to have a salad fresh from the garden paired with a fresh caught fish and nice glass of wine on a warm summer's evening. Right now, while the weather is still cool, he is growing kale, collard greens, and mustard greens, red leaf, and romaine lettuces. His beautiful wife, Darlene, makes the best collard greens this side of the Mississippi. The best part of gardening is talking to his granddaughter, Ray, about gardening and sharing his knowledge with her. They love talking about gardening and learning from each other. Mike is looking forward to traveling to Southern Oregon this summer to garden with his grandkids, Sonny and Ray. He will also be teaching them how to fish and how to use fish guts as fertilizer. Yeah, no better fertilizer than fish fertilizer. It's amazing what it does in your garden. And when I'm growing my peppers, that's one of my favorite things to add to all of them as well. Is a good fish fertilizer. So if you have a garden story that you'd like to share with us here on the show, do be sure to go check out our website again at letsgetgrowing.live. And you can check out the tab at the top there so that you can submit your garden stories for our show. We'd love to have you do that. And another way too, also to share your garden stories also is to join with us on our Facebook group at the Let's Get Growing Facebook group on Facebook, of course. And join with all of our gardeners in the Urban Gardener gardening community. And you can share your stories, pictures there with our group. You can also, answer some questions, ask some questions, and just kind of follow along with everybody and their great garden adventures this year. We'd love to see everything that you've got growing on as well. So come join us there on that group. And now it's time. We're going to do Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
IV Organic all-purpose fertilizers offer your plants everything they need to have the most productive, fruitful, and longest-lasting lives. For all plants, including your fruit trees, vegetables, ornamentals, and roses and flowers, in-ground or potted plants, young and established, the 6 macronutrients that all plants need. Macronutrients are those elements that plants need in abundance and include nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. Nitrogen helps with the greening of the plants and the growth. Phosphorus for abundance of flowers and fruits, plus drought tolerance. Potassium is for disease resistance, root development, and strength. Magnesium is the heart of the chlorophyll molecule, which is responsible for photosynthesis, converting waters and carbon dioxide with light energy into sugar molecules. Sulfur helps green, pale plants turn dark green and necessary for optimal plant metabolic processes. And calcium, the building block of all plant cell walls. IV Organic all-purpose fertilizers have it all in both the Super and Premium Blend products. The Super Blend simply has a higher percentage of the macronutrients plus azomite, which is derived from volcanic ash deposits, to offer your plants many of the micronutrients too. The product can be applied to the soil or as a foliar feed and even as a supplement to your compost tea. IV Organic all-purpose fertilizers are organic, effective, USA-made products to maximize the productivity, health, and life of all plants and trees. Keep growing with IV Organics and wishing you all happy gardening.
All right. Yes. And definitely another great way to be able to support our show here at Let's Get Growing is to support our sponsor, Ivy Organics. So go check out what they've got there in their shop. They've got the fertilizer as well as this really cool 3-in-1 plant guard that you can use on all of your different trees and plants. And be sure to go there. Use our promo code GROW10, GROW10 in their shops at ivyorganics.com to get 10% off. So we're going to jump right into this week, our channel of the week.
Hi, Ultimate Gardeners.
Hi, my name is Nathan.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm Rachel.
All right. For this week's channel of the week, we have joining with us Anne Marie of Bloom Where You're Planted.
Hey you guys, my name is Anne Marie, but my friends call me Dash for the dash in my name. I am coming at you from sunny Texas, Dallas, Texas, and my passion is to show people how to grow their own groceries. To do this, I turned my whole front yard into a veggie garden. I can even show you how to grow food throughout the winter. I specialize in out-of-the-box varieties that really help fight against pests and drought and all sorts of conditions and do their best to produce lots of food. Like this 1,000-hand kale, which is just a beast. I'm excited about growing in my first aquaponic system this year. Yeah, you guys, there's fish down there. When I first started growing my own food, I had no idea how to cook everything. So I love to invite people into my kitchen and learn how to cook these yummy veggies. We raise chickens for their beautiful eggs, of course, and for their amazing compost making power. And with the help of Rocket there, we were able to hatch some chicks in our own homemade incubator last year. That was really fun. And best of all, our chickens provide us with hours of funny chicken entertainment. We raise rabbits because they really are perfectly suited to the urban homestead. They're so quiet and sweet. And of course, those bunny bears, you guys, can go right out into the garden and grow great veggies. Of course, my amazing family bounces in and out of my videos and my adventure. My night in baseball cap and jeans. Well, head buff and hiking boots.
Buddy.
He adds the funny to my life. And I'm teaching my son Eli how to be a homesteader. Hello. And my beautiful girl. And a beautiful bunny. Insects play a huge role in our garden, you guys. We raise black soldier flies in this bin in the warm months, and they crawl right up the ramp, right into the waiting mouths of our chickens. So they provide great, nutritious chicken food and also great compost for our garden. We raise red wigglers for that black gold. Vermicomposting at its best. We raise mealworms because chickens will do anything for mealworms. And they produce this amazing frass, which is so good for your garden. Makes a great fertilizer. The next insect that's really captured my heart are my bees. We have this beautiful hive, and this top bar, and this top bar beehive. They have decided to make their own back entrance and exit. And this sweet little hive is new this year. They moved in right on my birthday, so they're my birthday bees. The bees are definitely the most exciting part of our homestead. I've done some bee rescues and some swarm rescues. Some are up high and some are down low, like in sprinkler boxes. But yeah, definitely there's such fascinating insects and I just can't get enough of them. And of course, can't get enough sweet, sweet honey.
So, all right, everyone, let's welcome Dash to our Let's Get Growing show.
Hey guys.
Hi, how are we doing? It's good to see you here. Thanks for joining with us.
Good to be here.
Awesome. I really love your trailer there. You've got so much growing on in your garden spaces there.
Thanks. This is an exciting day for us because it's April 1st and down here in Dallas, Texas, we can plant. I mean,
Yeah.
our last possible freeze date is April 15th, but the forecast is 10 days out. It looks really good. So it's like go time for us.
No time. Yeah, that's what I was saying a little bit earlier. Kind of depends on where you are in the country right now, but for those of you in the South, you're real lucky. You get to get started nice and early.
Uh-huh.
That's
But we
awesome.
do have a short spring though. So we need to get started early because it goes into that hotter than hell drought period really
Yeah.
quickly. And so we've got this quick chance to get everything up and going.
Yes, awesome, awesome. Well, again, really great to have you with us here. And what I want to do is start right off the bat with talking about your garden stories. Tell us a little bit about how you got started and what was your first garden experience?
Okay. I kind of have a unique garden story, I think, in that we just didn't have enough food for our family. And so we decided to homeschool, and it's kind of becoming a 2-income society. So we had way too much month at the end of the money every month. And so I started praying. I got down on my knees and I was praying to my Father, help us feed our family, Lord. And I really thought that my husband, his salary might increase or I might get a part-time job. But he kept saying to me, let's grow this. And I thought, that is crazy. I've never grown my own food. I have no idea even where to start. And my whole backyard was shaded, totally shaded. And so I thought, it's just crazy. But as the weeks went on, I kept driving past this field. And there was a little church on the field, big green field. And the Lord kept saying, that small, still voice kept saying, look at that field, Dash. We could really grow some food there. And I thought, you're crazy. And then one day I decided, okay, I'm just going to put this to rest. So I pulled into the parking lot of the church and I went in and I talked to the pastor and I said, have you ever thought about putting a community garden there? And he said, there's already a group going and they're going to start one. Would you like to join? And I was like, okay, Papa, I see what you're doing here. And so that's what we did. We turned that field into thriving community garden. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun too. And that was my classroom. That's where I learned to grow food. And I got to see everything growing and how big it was. And I learned there were cool season things and warm season things. And so that was really fun. And then I moved to, I kept hearing the Lord say, let's bring it home. Like, let's bring it closer to home. And I was just thinking, well, the only place I can grow food would be in my front yard because it's the only place I have sun. And I kept hearing the Lord say, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. And so I turned my whole front yard into a veggie garden and I grow a lot of food there. So it was really fun and exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great how that all worked out for you, just in time and all that. I had a very similar thing happen with me years ago when I was getting growing too. I have very limited space. And at the time when I was starting to garden in the spaces that I have, I mean, I've extended and I've taken up and taken advantage of a lot of space that I wasn't thinking about back then. So I did this similar thing. I reached out to someone that I knew who was connected with a community garden that was down the road from me. maybe about a mile or so down the road from me, but they then hooked me up with someone who was even closer, and they were just getting this community garden started too. So I had that same sort of thing where, you know, I got to get in initially with this brand new community garden that was just like just a couple of blocks away from my house. I could just walk right over there and do everything I needed to do for that. And that's what kind of got me started in extending my garden. But from there, I also then started, watching more videos, seeing more people do things with small spaces. My vision kind of grew in what I was capable of doing here and around the place too. So that is really just amazing how that kind of works out like that. And then we get things going and growing and everything too. So then for you again, so as you're saying, so your very first garden basically was that community garden, and then you moved into your front yard. So how did what did you get set up with? What did you start out with when you were, breaking ground into your front yard there to get your garden started?
Well, it was a little bit of a challenge because I started with 2 raised beds, but I needed a fence because the rabbits were eating everything that I planted. And so I started out with a wire fence, and then the city came to my door and they said, you better take this down. You got 3 days to take this down.
No,
It's
yeah.
so they don't have a problem. Yeah, it was a little bit scary there, but they don't have a problem with front yard gardens, but they have a problem with the fence ordinance, which makes sense because you wouldn't want your neighbor to build a 8-foot privacy fence around their front yard. So I get it. Right. But I really needed that to keep the rabbits out. And so my neighbors all wrote letters to the city. It was really sweet, saying that awesome. This reminded them of Victory Garden, and they love to see me out there, and please let me keep my garden. And so that was really cool. And the city came to meet with me and talk about it and decide, if they were going to compromise. And my neighbors came down that morning and surprised me, and they all showed up, and the city was there. So it was really cool. But wow. I just started out with 2 raised beds, and then actually didn't have the money to make more beds because, I was trying to provide my family with food. I couldn't, this wasn't an expensive hobby, And so I ended up staying at the community garden. I raised veggies there, and then I raised veggies in my front 2 raised beds. And then I sold those veggies every week and they paid me up front. So they paid me up front for weekly delivery of vegetable and eggs. And then I used, exactly. So I used that money to buy the materials for 2 more raised beds. So I did those. So I kept doing that until my whole garden was full with raised beds.
Wow, that's just amazing. That's a great way to do it. And I love the fact that your community came and organized around you and helped make changes to allow you to keep doing what you're doing too. That's just a really awesome story. So when you got started growing and you were, you've built out your beds and all of that, you've got yourself probably a couple of seasons in and all of that, and you've started learning about growing all these different things. What were some of those first things that you started growing? What were those first types of plants and vegetables and things that you were growing?
Well, our community garden, I think we had a lot of squash that first year, but I think the bugs don't really find you at first. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. I'm going to switch to comments so I can see. But it seems like the bugs took a while to find us, like the squash vine borer. So we had a lot of food at first, and then we started to have more trouble with pest pressure. But I grow, I love to grow kale. So after I learned a while, I kind of learned about my area that you can't just grow those typical things that people normally grow, like the yellow squash and the zucchini and stuff that you see at your grocery store. It just doesn't seem to work that well here because of the pest pressure and the drought time. And so it took me a little while to learn that. And I love Baker Creek Heirloom seeds because I looked for those varieties that were unusual. And I would even go into their comment section and review section and listen how how people's experience was. And if anything said like resistant to the squash vine blur, I would snatch it up and try it. And so it ended up evolving from the normal food that you see in your grocery store to more squashes that are really unusual and different kales and stuff that are kind of unusual. So yeah, I love that company. They were a big help to me.
Oh, they have so many amazing, cool varieties that you would never think of. One of the things I love too, and I've talked about before, is I attend their National Heirloom Exposition, and to get to see all of these in person and see all these different varieties. There's just so many amazing things that they have there available at their company too. And what a great show for you to match up with for us too, where we have Jere Gettle interview coming up here in a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm a
But
huge fan.
yes, he's a really great guy. Did want to mention and talk about, like you're saying, you guys down there have more of issues with those vine borers. I've never really seen one myself.
Oh, you're
The one,
lucky.
the one issue I've started to have, because I've been growing squash for years in my garden, different varieties of squash over the years, and just those squash bugs. Now, I didn't have them for quite a while, but once they started showing up a couple of years ago, they come in force every single year, and I can't seem to get get their numbers down well enough before they start showing up and everything. So they are something to try to keep up. Creepy little bugs themselves too.
Yes.
But but yeah, those squash bugs really seem to do a number on my plants. The one good advantage of that too, though, is that they're kind of or it's not really good in the long run, but because they really take down the plant. But once you start getting some fruits established and stuff too, it's really, if you can kind of keep their numbers at bay just a little bit, the plants will continue to kind of grow those fruits out and everything. So I've gotten pretty good harvests still, but I've got to find a way to take care of those, and hopefully I'll never see one of those vine borers in my life.
I hope not.
So squash was one of your very first experiences there in the community garden and all that. What are some of your favorite things to grow in your home garden?
My favorite thing to grow is really a staple of greens. So I have winter greens that grow really well, and I brought some seeds so I could show you guys. So for winter, I usually grow all sorts of different kales, but my favorite one is called Mars Landing. And actually brought a leaf so you guys can see it. Ooh, it's so tasty and tender. And so I got it from Renee's Garden Seeds. But this is my favorite kale to eat just fresh. And then this year I got 1,000 head kale for the first time, and it is a beast. This fed my rabbits and my family all winter long. And of course, wow. I have to cover it with hoops and a frost cloth during every freeze. I have to go out and cover it and then uncover it again. But, and then Tronchuda kale was another one I tried this year that was really a beast. And it's more like a cabbage type flavor, but that one was really good too. And then I tried this one, Mizuna, which was a free packet. Baker's Creek always gives you a free packet of seeds. So I tried it, and I will grow it every year. I really liked it. Yeah. So that's kind of my winter staple of greens are all those kales, and that keeps us fed. And then we'll add, stuff to it. But that's my main nutrition. And then in the summertime, I switch over to another set of greens that like the hot weather. So I did moringa tree.
Okay. Right.
And it grows up, but then it dies back in the winter. I'm hoping, sometimes people say in my area it can come back from the roots. So I chopped it down. I'm hoping it will come back. But they've always died on me so far. So we'll see. But it's really nutritious. You can use the leaves.
Those are such fast growers anyways. So they might, they might do well as an annual anyways, just because of how fast they grow.
Totally, yeah. And then purslane comes up wild, but they have a Baker's Creek purslane seed. So if you need to get started with it, you can get it from them. But it comes up wild in my garden. So I use purslane also for my greens, and then Egyptian spinach. Some people call it, I got this originally from Baker's Creek, but they don't carry it anymore. Let's see, how do you say it? Molucca Kaya, or some people call it jute plant. But anyway, it has these leaves. It grows into this big bush, and it has these leaves that have a really good flavor. So that, and then there's one more.
And it's pretty heat tolerant too.
Totally. It sets down a big tap root, and so it's just thriving all during the hot time. Yeah, and then there's one more longevity spinach. I ordered it from Baker's Creek, and it comes in plants because I guess it's hard to start as a seed.
Yeah.
So as long as I took it inside for winter and I kept putting it out and inside in a pot, then it grows just gangbusters during the summer months. And so with those, greens are like the base of our meals, and then we add, we can add peppers and tomatoes, all the fun stuff that we like to eat, but that's like the base of our food.
Yeah, I really like that longevity spinach as well too. Same thing. I was actually gifted some of those by one of my viewers. Gifted one of those at the last Heirloom exposition I went to a few years ago, and like you're saying, you just grow those. I just put them in like a jar with some water and let them root out, and they grow just to kind of keep them warm during the winter time, and then you plant them out. In the mid-spring when it starts to warm up nice, and then they grow heat tolerant really well. They spread out and they kind of vine up a kind of a trellis that I have as well. And we're able to harvest those throughout the season. And then at the end of the season, when it starts to cool down, you just cut the tops off, stick them in that jar again, bring them in the house. And I've actually had those growing now since 3-4 years now. It's been
good.
So they're really awesome how they work like that. One of those just kind of unique crops that you can grow in your garden.
Yeah, and those things by themselves each is not that tasty, but if you put them all together, it's different textures and different tastes and textures. It really is good.
Yeah, mix them up with different things, that's for sure. So what are some of those things? You've got all those things that you got favorite things, and I'm sure along the way you found things that don't work out well or present certain challenges. We've already talked about the squash and the squash bugs, but what are some of those other kind of plants that you find are really kind of difficult and you probably don't grow very often?
Let's see. I really find regular squash really challenging here because of the squash vine borer, and it bores at the very stem of the plant. And so you just come out and your squash is just dead, and it was doing great, and then it's just dead, and that's the end of it. And so it's just so frustrating. And there are certain ways to combat them, but squash is hard to grow, the normal squash. So I like I said, I went to Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, and I looked for those squashes that have that really firm stems instead of the hollow stems like normal. Yeah. And so the squash vine borer just can't get in there as well. So I just pretty much stopped growing yellow squash and zucchini, and I went with, I think I put some seeds here to show you guys. Where are they? Oh, okay. I went with squash rampicate, trombone squash. That it takes a little while to get started, but then it grows a lot of food, and they can actually store into the winter if you let them just turn like this honey color. So it's kind of like a butternut squash is kind of what it tastes like. Wow. And then I did, this was such a winner. Lemon squash. The squash vine borer just did not like it. It couldn't defeat this. So that was really cool. It doesn't taste like lemon. Everybody always asks me, does it taste like lemon? No, it tastes like a buttery yellow squash. It's my substitute for yellow squash. Yeah. And then let's see. Okay, all these little round ones, like this one. It really worked for me, and this one. So just looking. For those again? This one is Tondo Scuro. It's a hard name. I'm gonna have to get your guest to pronounce some of these. Tondo Scuro di Pigenza.
Okay, I can see why you avoided that name for sure.
All right, it's not easy, but this isn't easy. Ronde Nice is it seemed like those little round ones had like a really firm stem, and some of them would even root down into the ground in different places. So even if the squash vine borer like got it at the first part, it had rooted somewhere else. So it couldn't defeat it. It had to try to defeat it all over again. And then by the time it got that part, it rooted somewhere else. So it had to try again at it. And so, yeah, so I would say squash is really hard for me, but I found a way around it finally by just saying, okay, I'm not going with the normal. We're going to have to think out of the box here.
Yeah, that is kind of an advantage of those kind of vining squash too. You can let those vines run on the ground, find different points on the plant where you can get them to get on the ground, maybe even put some soil over them a little bit so that they start producing those roots. And yeah, like you said, that's a good way to kind of give the vine borer a little extra, an extra challenge to being able to take your plant over. So yeah, those are some great squash varieties there too to give a try. I like that trombolini too that you have. I've seen other people grow those, and they're just these really cool, long, skinny squash, and can get really big too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are awesome, excellent. So again, you have so many things going on, and you've developed such a cool little homestead at your place and all of that. Somewhere along the way you had decided that you're going to go ahead and take a camera out to your gardens and you're going to start documenting it and putting it on YouTube. What kind of inspired you to start a gardening YouTube channel?
Actually, just like I don't really have a front yard garden personality. I don't really think I have a YouTube personality. So actually, it was the Lord that said, let's show people, let's teach them. And I was like, okay, who do I invite over? Tell me, Lord, I'll invite them. And he said, everyone. And I thought, oh, that would mean the internet. And so I started it, and I really enjoyed it. I found that I really enjoyed filming and editing because it's like the artwork of a story, and you frame in your mind how you want the story, and you want to show people different things. And it's just fun editing and trying to keep it as exciting as possible, switching from one thing to another. So it's challenging and fun. And I kind of loved photography anyway. So I guess it ended up working. But at first, seeing myself on camera and interacting was really something I had to get over.
Yeah, that was same for me too. And I'll tell you what, those are the most cringe-worthy videos that I have. I keep them up, just so that they're and everything. But if I go back and look at some of those early videos, I'm like, oh my gosh, I.
Yes. Yes.
But again, like you said, it's one of those things. I kind of have a little bit of a photography background too, some photojournalism and journalism as well too that I did back in college. And when I started gardening, for me, I had a lot of people, my neighbors, for one, because I grow on these alleyway spaces. So I had a lot of neighbors who were like, hey, you got to show other people what you're doing here. This is really cool,
Same.
and then some friends and family are like, hey, why don't you try sharing it online. I started with just a Facebook group, a local Facebook group, which I've since let other people take over, and went and moved on to YouTube, because I was like, well, I can really try this video thing. And with phones being so easy, I just had this simple iPhone. I think it was an iPhone 6 back then when I started, and really good video quality, and just went out there and started making video clips. And that's where I really found the fun with it, like you said, is editing this. You're putting this all together and creating kind of a garden adventure story, and
Yes.
and then that's when I think really kind of my garden passion had already exploded before this, but now my passion for YouTube and being able to contribute into the gardening community on YouTube, because I've been a fan for years. I've been watching videos and learning things for so long. It was really a great opportunity to kind of join in with everybody and start sharing my garden adventure too. Yeah, it's really fun. It's really great. Now, do you have any sort of favorite videos that you've made over the years?
I did one defeating my nemesis, which is the squash vine borer, and it was so satisfying. It was for squash bugs and the squash vine borer. It was so satisfying to just show people, okay, this is what you can do to combat them. And in the end, I put all those different varieties that I found that they don't like as much. So, but it was so satisfying because that bug is just my total nemesis. And I even picked off squash bugs once and fed them, tried to feed them to my chickens, and they wouldn't even eat them. They were like, no.
They're so disgusting. The chickens won't even eat them. Oh,
right.
man. Well, that gets us to our next point, because like I was saying, you got so many things going on in there too. You know, as we saw in your video trailer earlier, you know, you've started a garden. When, you know, during that process, did you think to incorporate chickens and rabbits and all of that as well?
I actually asked one of my I don't know, someone I really looked up to was the garden girl. And at that time, she was doing raised beds in a small space, like you are using the space that she had. And she came into town, and I went to where she was speaking, and I asked her, will it really make a big difference if I get chickens? Like, will their manure really make a difference in my garden? And she said, absolutely, yes. Get a few chickens and use that. And that is when your garden will really start growing. And it's in the earth. It's in the earth and the fertilizer that you really need to concentrate on. And so I thought, okay, so really I got chickens for the garden, but then of course eggs, and they're so fun. And but it has made a huge difference. I have to say, adding those manure and that homemade compost just really makes the garden grow and come alive.
Yeah, and then from there, you incorporating rabbits. You know, that's something actually I thought I can't really necessarily have chickens. I would love to have chickens and where I'm at, but I could possibly have rabbits. And I've been thinking about that actually over the last season or two. So if I get to stay here and I'm not having to move or anything, I think that's probably one of the next things I'm going to try to work on, is getting some rabbits and doing all that. Because again, like you're saying in your video, is you could take that rabbit manure and just kind of toss it right in your garden and getting it working right away. You don't have to compost that down or anything like you have to do with your chicken manure. And you also have bees. Another thing I would love to do too, bees. That's got to be fun, right?
Yeah, let me tell you one thing about rabbits, though, that I learned, which was kind of unfortunate, but that I tried putting them down on the ground. And I even had like rabbit tractors that would go through my side yard, and they would get to eat. But there were some parasites in the soil, coccidiosis and different parasites. So that was kind of frustrating, because I want an animal to kind of be down and out, and it's, you know, as humanely as I can raise it. And to have them in cages all the time really wasn't something I was wanting to do, but because of the parasites in the soil. So that has been frustrating about rabbits, that I have to keep them in cages. So I just make sure the cages are very big and, you know, treat them the best that I can. But that's one thing you have to watch out for. I just warning you there, because you think you're going to let them out into pens and whatever on the ground. And I think maybe for a big homestead, it might work. I've seen people pasture raise them, but I think my homestead is so concentrated, they were just on the same soil, you know, each time. So just a warning, so you'll know about that when you start, because that was a hard learning curve.
Yeah. I actually, when I was a teenager, one of my first summer jobs was working for this lady, and she had kind of a small, like maybe, you know, acre and a half type of farm. And, you know, she had everything from chickens to pigs and a couple of milking cows and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, it was really fun to kind of learn and get to, you know, get to do that. But one of the big things that she had, which were just, I don't know, they ran wild everywhere. Rabbit holes all over the place. And she had rabbits. I mean, they were all over the place. And she told me that she just got started with like a couple of them. One of them got loose. And then from there, you know, it just turned into a big, you know, rabbit community basically. And that was probably one of the fun things about working there, was seeing all these rabbits running around in and out of holes and going all over the places and stuff like that too. So rabbits are really fun. I really like the idea of being able to do that. But again too, like we were saying, the one thing that I hope that I can possibly get to do soon is, bees. I really am fascinated with the idea of, having bees and beehives and all of that too. And again, for the honey, is one thing. It's really, I guess,
Yes.
the big bonus. But I'm just fascinated with the idea of, raising them and having these bee colonies. So tell us a little bit about your bee adventures, and you've also mentioned too that you've done like some bee rescues and things as well too.
hmm hmm Um, I actually was pretty amazing. I talked to the Lord a lot. That's probably obvious by now. And I was praying actually for a swarm. I was like, okay, I'm ready. I've got my beehive ready built. My brother-in-law built me a top bar beehive, so I had it already. And I was like, okay, Lord, I need bees. And believe it or not, right outside, I walked down my front path, and you look up, and there was a swarm of bees. And my son came running in telling me, Mom, your bees are here. Your bees are here. And I went up on that ladder. I don't know how tall it was, but I'm kind of afraid of heights. So I was stepping up that ladder, all things through Christ and strengthened me, and stepping up that ladder. And then I swept that swarm into a bag, and I hived it up. And that was the beginning. And it's just grown from there. I've had different experiences from there. And then when people find out I had bees, then they started calling me in springtime saying, oh, I've got bees in my sprinkler box. I've got a swarm of bees in my tree. And so so springtime's a busy time for me when I suit up and get out there and get those bees. And I've also built a swarm trap. So in springtime, I put the trap up. I took 2 pots and put them together, and put old comb inside and a lemongrass lure. Believe it or not, they're lured by the scent of lemongrass. So I put that on the outside and hung it up in a tree. And at one point on Easter Sunday, bees moved into it, and somebody saw it, and the whole church, they say, Dash's bees are here. And we all ran out to see these bees that had just moved in.
That's
And then
awesome.
we lowered down the trap and wrapped it up in netting and drove with them, which is a little intimidating, and drove with them in the back of the van,
Yeah.
home, and then hived them up. Yeah, but so that is they're so exciting. It's so fulfilling working with
Yeah.
them.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I can't
Mm-hmm.
wait. I'm telling you, for most of my life though, I was scared to death of bees. I got stung
Oh,
once when I was a little kid, and from that experience, it just set in my mind, oh, anytime I saw a bee, I went running. But since I started
oh,
gardening and becoming more fascinated with the insects and the different things that are really these beneficials and these sort of things that really make the whole kind of garden thing work. I've become more and more fascinated with the idea of bees, and so I can't wait to be able to have my first hive someday. All right,
yeah.
so as we're oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Well, believe it or not, I found out I was a little bit allergic to bees. I got
Oh
stung,
no.
and I had a systemic reaction. So I always wear my suit though. And they're so fascinating that I thought I'm not giving these up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I always wear my safe suit. I see people online not wearing one, but
Oh, yeah.
bees out in the flowers is no big deal. But when you're taking their food source, their honey, and
Yeah.
you're moving around their babies, it's game on
Yeah.
in some cases.
I've seen some people doing that too. I was like, I don't think that'll ever be me. I
No.
don't think so. You ever seen the people who actually like wear them as beards and all of that
Yeah.
too? I'm like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, no, I don't think
Yeah.
so.
No.
All right, Dash, Anne Marie. I love the nickname and everything too. As we're finishing up, this is such a great interview, and it's great to have you here. I want to ask you though, too. Do seeing how you got some experience in the garden, do you have any tips or anything for newer gardeners or people who are just getting started?
I really like what Greg Peterson said when he was on last week. He said, figure out your seasons for your individual area. Because, like I said, we have like a short spring, and then we have this hotter than hell month. And this year, I think I'm going to shut down during the hot month and
Yeah.
go to my new aquaponics system and just shut the garden down, except for just some things that have a real good drought tolerance.
Yeah.
But go try this aquaponics, because last year it was really a bad drought last year, but I was
Right.
putting in more water, more city water, paying for more city water than I was getting out of vegetables all year, I think. So the
Right.
cost, it was hard. It was frustrating. So I think to know your seasons, and we have a short fall season, and then we can grow all winter as long as you know how to protect it. So know
Yeah.
your seasons, and then don't try to just grow varieties that you hear. Maybe you'll see on YouTube, even people growing just the normal varieties you see in your store, that they might not work in your area. And so get on Baker's Creek Heirloom Seeds and look at those reviews and try some different things that grow in. They have seeds from all different countries, and find
Yeah.
what works for your particular area, I think. And don't get, some people get frustrated trying to grow the normal things and give up. Say,
Yeah.
no, don't give up. Just keep
Yeah, that's always the
experimenting with
biggest
different
advice.
things.
That's always my biggest advice is to, don't give up. Certain things aren't going to work out. Like you mentioned too, really a couple of great points. Like Greg Peterson was talking about when he was here with us, and we kind of touched on it a little bit too with Scott Head last week as well too, is that you got, especially for you down in Texas, those who are in the summer, you've got a different way of looking at things than we do in the north. Summertime in the north is really our time to grow. But
Yeah.
it's the opposite down there. That's where you're kind of taking your,
Yeah.
as what would be our winter break is going to be your summer break down there as well too. So
Yes.
you got to keep those things in mind. And I think you made a good point too when you were talking about Baker Creek or any other seeds or seed companies you might be shopping from. Get into those review sections and listen to some of these other people who've got the experience with growing those things, and you'll be able to find a lot more information of whether or not that's going to work out for you in your garden.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome, Dash. It's been so awesome to have you here on the show with us. Really great to have you. Thank you very much for being with us.
Mm-hmm. It's a fun show. I get out in the garden, and then my time, it comes on at 1. So I come inside, I get my lunch, and I think, oh, my peeps are talking about gardening.
That is so awesome. Yeah, in fact, I've been really enjoying you jumping in our chat box and all of that too, as well, and participating with the show. It's really great to have you here with us, not just here today, but each and every week. So I hope you have some really great fun in your garden, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, bye.
All right, really great interview there with Dash. And one of the things I wanted to talk about too, as well, with all of you, is our question of the week that I mentioned just a little bit earlier. What is your favorite vegetable or plant to grow in your garden? So we've had a few different responses on our Facebook page, the Let's Get Growing page, and let's go over a couple of those. We've got our friend and viewer, longtime viewer, Nancy Hood, says that's a hard question. She loves growing everything, but she says potatoes. She loves to dig them and steam them with lots of butter, salt, and pepper. And of course, so many ways to fix them. Potatoes are great. I love growing potatoes. I can't grow them in the ground, but I do grow them in containers as well. Brenda Bow says she loves growing sun gold tomatoes and potatoes as well. And we have Asia, our producer. Again, hard question, so hard to choose. She says she likes growing garlic, and colorful dry beans are her current favorite. Yes, I love the cool beans are cool. You got so many different cool beans out there to grow. I'm gonna try growing a few different varieties myself. And another longtime viewer of the show, of the channel, Chris Robles. He's down in Mexico. He loves growing peppers. That's how we got to meet early on in the first year or so that I started this channel, was getting together and talking about peppers. In fact, he did a pepper taste test for us for a Sugar Rush peach pepper variety we grew in our first couple seasons. So peppers are a great thing to grow. One of my favorites as well too. Diane McCauley Lackey says tomatoes. Tomatoes again too. One of those things, everyone, if you're a gardener, those are probably your first couple of favorite things to grow are peppers and tomatoes. And yeah, I love growing all sorts of different varieties as well too. We've got Joe in the chat box saying figs. Yes, figs are awesome. I'm hoping that my container fig that I've got growing this last season is going to produce some for us this year. I'm really, really looking forward to that, as well as a few other varieties that I was able to get from our sponsor, Ivy Organic. They just did last month a fig cutting giveaway, and we were able to get a couple of different varieties from them. So I'm looking forward to those cuttings growing here in the next season or two as well, and kind of get some more different varieties of figs in our garden too, because I love figs as well too. But I love most things. I just love growing. I love gardening. Gardening is such a fun thing. I love trying new things. Again, as I've also talked about on the show too, even if I don't really enjoy or like certain things that I grow, I'll find someone who does, just so I can grow those plants too. So, yep, love growing things. Those are some of my favorites, or all of your favorites as well too. So, next question for this next week is, what is your favorite garden tool and why? Kind of going off of what we were talking about in Mark's segment, in the garden, all these different garden tools. We all have different garden challenges and garden things and different spaces and all of that. So what are some of your favorite garden tools and why? We'll have that question put up for you on our Facebook group, the Let's Get Growing Gardening group on Facebook, and you can check that out there. And next week, we'll go over all of your different answers and talk about all of our favorite garden tools. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right, everybody, again, to go check out or subscribe to our channel so you can check out some of those cool feature videos and the different videos we have. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I just put up my first garden journal of the year, so go check those out as well. But now it's time for our featured guest of our show, and I just want to let you all know right up front, this is our first featured guest that we've done as a pre-recording. So we'd love to be able to answer questions or send questions to our featured guests, but it is pre-recorded this week. But we had to have this really great guest on our show, so that's what we did. We recorded it a couple weeks ago. So let's get started with this really fun interview with the founder of Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company, Jere Gettle. So, all right, everyone, we're really excited today to be able to bring to you all the founder of Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company, Jere Gettle. Now, Jere started the company when he was 17 years old with $100 and a tote bin full of heirloom seeds he had grown on his family's homestead in the Missouri Ozarks. Today, Baker Creek is North America's largest heirloom seed company, offering about 1,000 varieties of heirloom seeds from around the world. Though the company has grown from a teenager's hobby to a thriving global business, Jere's passion for heirlooms, gardening, healthy eating, community, and self-sufficiency remains at the heart of the business and serves to inspire others. So let's welcome Jere Gettle onto the show. Hey, Jere,
thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on today. I really appreciate and honored to be here.
Absolutely. And it's definitely an honor for us to have you on the show as one of our favorite seed companies to shop for seeds from. I've been a big fan of your company for many, many years. And again, really great to have you with us today for this interview.
Well, thank
So,
you. Appreciate it, and looking forward to it. And yeah, we're hoping for spring and getting ready to start planting more stuff outside. So excited! It's an exciting time of year for us.
absolutely. I'm already getting all of my seed orders in and getting ready to get all of my seeds started here on our in our garden as well too. So first I want to kind of dig into your story a little bit with you here. So when was it that you really started getting into saving seeds?
Saving seeds kind of started kind of in my teenage years, so it was kind of a gradual process of from gardening and then noticing things disappearing and also noticing unique things in the garden and just kind of naturally happened, I guess, in my teenage years, mid-teenage years. I started to, early to mid-teenage years is when I really started saving my own seed.
But what kind of seeds were you saving in there? I mean, what were some of those first ones that you were saving up?
Oh, my first probably passion for heirlooms started with tomatoes, but I mean, I was interested in all sorts of things. But the big thing I really started collecting was tomatoes right at first. I started growing different unusual tomatoes in the 90s and early to mid 90s. And each year I'd try to get some more. And eventually I started saving seed on a few of them. And it just gradually increased from there. But as far as varieties, those early varieties that I got, I think pineapple was one of the early ones that I started with, pineapple, tomato, and watermelon beefsteak. And oh, there's been a number. The very first one I grew actually was the yellow pear tomato when I was like 3 years old. But when I really got into tomatoes and started saving seed was in the early to mid 90s.
Oh, that's really awesome. Awesome. So, could you tell us just a little bit about heirlooms versus other types of seeds?
Well, an heirloom term is kind of like antique or vintage. It's a traditional, historic, or old variety. An heirloom is one that's been passed down. So it's one that's come down through families versus one that was in general that came through a commercial seed supply company like some of it might have been developing varieties for Campbell Soup Company is not really considered generally an heirloom. Although some of those varieties, depending on the term, it could be an heirloom to that company. But usually family heirlooms are ones that have been passed down through families. But in many cases, the families and seed companies interconnected at some point. So it's kind of a loose term that basically today mostly means like historic or traditional variety. It's non-hybrid, non-GMO, of course, and non-patented, non-controlled. It's a traditional. It's the way all seeds used to be like 100 years ago, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So, Baker Creek has so many, like we mentioned in the bio, there are about 1,000 different varieties of these heirloom seeds. Any of those, some of your favorites that you like out of the catalog?
Oh, there's so many. It's always hard to pick, but probably
Any of any of the stories, the varieties that have like some of the best
there's so many
stories?
really cool stories and really cool varieties. One of the varieties that we have recently, when we traveled to China about 5 years ago, and we adopted two children there. It was a little over 5 years ago, and when I was there, of course, I started looking at seeds and looking at seed markets and so forth. And one of the ladies there helped me find a seed market, and I was looking around and I found this beautiful pink celery, and that was a variety that's not common in China. It's a rare variety in China, but it has beautiful pink stems, and that's one of my personal favorites that I collected myself. And then from there, we are increasing the seed. Within a few years, we increased the seed, and we're able to offer it in the catalog within a year or two. But that's one of my personal new favorites that we've got over the years. But there's so many great ones with stories. Like one variety that we carry most years is called the Yokohama squash. It's a very ribbed, very kind of dark gray, kind of slate gray colored squash. But it was first brought to the U.S. from Yokohama, Japan in the 1860s by, it was like Abraham Lincoln's. It was right after Japan opened up, and it was like Abraham Lincoln's, I think, first ambassador or something like that. He went to Japan, and his brother ran a plant and seed company in New York. So they sent it back, and it was here in the US for a number of years, and suddenly the catalogs just kind of discontinued it, and it disappeared. And so I would read about it in old catalogs and I couldn't find it. And finally, in about around year 2000 or 2002, something like that, a French seed collector sent me some seeds, and I was able to get it going again. And it's kind of like, bringing something that you've seen in old woodcut art to life, and getting it again in your garden when it hasn't been seen in America maybe for 100 years or so. And then we took that same seed back to Japan when we went a few years ago, and took it to the different like heirloom seed companies and collectors and general gardeners, and nobody had seen it. They didn't know how long it had disappeared from Japan. But anyway, that's the fun thing about seeds. They started out here in the US and somehow got to Japan and was selected and developed there in the last, probably 400 years or so. And then it came back to the US in a different form. And then it disappeared from the US. And then it ended up in France, somewhere in that time. And then came back to the US, and then it went back to Japan, and it was basically unknown in Japan as far as we know. So it's kind of how seeds go between cultures and connect cultures. That's kind of a classic story of how heirlooms travel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really fascinating. I think one of the coolest things I find about, especially with your company, and obviously I've got all of the heirloom whole seed catalogs with me here. And one of the things I really enjoy about getting into this catalog and looking around is checking out all of those really cool stories of all of these different heirlooms and how they have traveled around and made their way around the world. And then again, like you said, back to us again in a sense too. And that's something that's really great about what your company does. Now, in that process, kind of what do you have people that are out there around the world searching for different heirloom varieties for you?
We do. There's always people sending us things, like almost on a daily basis. We're always getting something new, something to try. I had a box of seeds this morning that came from the Netherlands, I believe. There's both seed companies, like small, specialist companies that send us stuff, especially a lot both in the US and Japan and the Netherlands and all over the place. But then we also have a lot of just home gardener collectors, and then everybody in between, farmers and so forth. And then we have a few people that work with us. We have a guy that works with us in Jamaica, and he does trialing, and he'll occasionally send us some things as well. And then we have a couple people in Japan and one or two people in Europe as well that work for us part-time, finding things, making visits to companies, visiting trial grounds when we can't go, and doing stuff like that. So we're always on the lookout for, new varieties of flowers and vegetables and herbs and anything new and exciting. And many times the new and exciting is actually old things that have been kind of rediscovered, and all of a sudden they are new to us, but not necessarily new. They're a lot of times, kind of like the Yokohama squash. All of a sudden it's new to, the US, and then it was almost new to Japan, even though, it had been developed in Japan. So it's kind of that type of stuff happens all the time, where cultures have something and they lose it, and then it comes back through another culture. So it's that's kind of what we try to connect different peoples, different families, connect them with their old seeds, as well as connecting them with other culture seeds and other family seeds. And also, if you're just looking for seeds from your state or area or country, it's fun to be able to do a whole garden if you want, with Italian vegetables or Chinese vegetables or so forth and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So you also have a kind of a big farm or property there too, where you trial a lot of these different varieties that you're receiving?
On our farm here in Missouri, we trial about probably around 3,000 different lots of seeds every year. They're not all different varieties, but probably about 2,000 of them will be different varieties on the property here. So it's probably about half flowers and half vegetables. And we have about 20 greenhouses on the property here. So we trial actually year round, outside and in greenhouses in the warmer months. And then in the cooler months, all the greenhouses are full of, bok choys and cabbages and carrots and stocks and nasturtiums and cool loving flowers and herbs. And then we also trial stuff in Jamaica as well, on a few acres there. And then in California, we usually will trial a few acres in California as well to see how things do in different climates, as well as just to get all the data collected. It's a lot of work and a lot of growing to get everything grown and trialed and selected. And every year we try to grow things, both for finding new things, but also we try to double check every lot that we get. A farmer grows us some new seeds, and we want to try to check and make sure that it's coming true to type and it's growing well and it's germinating well, not just in the laboratory, but also on the farm, in the garden, in the greenhouse. We want to see how it's doing and how it performs.
Yes, definitely. You want to make sure that they're the right seeds. There's nothing worse than finding
it's
out something
always
isn't working. So it's great that you do all the work in order to make sure that that works out correctly.
And there's always more research to do. It's both fun and exciting and challenging all at the same time. There's nothing better though than to go out into a watermelon patch or something like that and just go out and start sampling. I can't think of anything much more fun than be able to. That's the kind of work that doesn't seem like work. So.
Yeah, there's nothing like that too. And I think that was one of my favorite experiences with your Heirloom exposition. Was you had a great watermelon year a few years back, and oh man, all of the watermelon we got to eat during that time. But it's got to be great to be right in the field, being able to taste and test that out, especially not just watermelon, but all of the different things that you've got, because again, you've got so many great different varieties. So again, you started this company, again, as we talked about, back when you were a teenager with when was your first catalog?
The first catalog came out in the winter of 97, 98. So it would have been that, that season, the 97, 98 winter period.
So I'm sure you probably couldn't imagine that starting with that first catalog to see where the company has come to today, right?
Yeah, it was totally a hobby the first couple of years. It was something I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to work with seeds. I just didn't know if I was going to be able to make a living out of it. I was trying to figure out, okay, if I'm going to make a living out of this, I got to get it moving forward, because it takes some time to get any business built up. So it was kind of like I got to make enough so I could survive. And fortunately, I was still living at home for a year or two, a couple of years, so it gave me the ability to get it started before I had too much other expenses. Otherwise, it's really hard, to start and try to do it full time. So it was able to get it off the ground, and I didn't really make anything. Barely survived, for many years. And now it's always a struggle, but it's at least now we kind of have our systems in place, and we know what's coming and going a little better than when you're first starting something, you don't really know what's coming at you. So.
That's right. Exactly. It's almost the same thing right here with our channel and our show and everything too. Just kind of starting with an idea and a dream, and then see where it takes you from there, right?
No, it's fun. It's really fun to start that way, and you can let it grow kind of like organically. Like, you let it literally kind of see where it goes, and you can, as you learn, you grow with it instead of knowing everything to start with. It's really fun to learn as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when you started building up the company through, your regular catalogs, which, similar to other catalogs, you sign up and for different seed companies, and you receive their catalogs, and that's what your catalogs were at first. But then you guys moved into doing what is, I think, probably one of the coolest thing in the seed selecting time of year, is to be able to get the whole seed catalog in the mail. So what kind of inspired you to go from just doing a regular company seed catalog to doing this just really cool, large, what I call like if people remember the old Sears catalogs, it's like the old Sears catalog of seeds, where you get to really dig in and see all of these just like you said, thousands of varieties of different seeds that you have to offer. What inspires you to take it to that level?
Well, I guess several different things. We'd had a magazine at the time. I'd been putting out a magazine for a number of years. It was called The Heirloom Gardener, and it's now out of business. It went off to another publisher, and they combined it. But for a number of years, we had a magazine out, which we sent out from here. It was like from 2003 onward till probably for about 12, 13 years, we published it. And after a while, it went on the newsstand. We found a distributor and a agent to get it on the newsstand. It went on the newsstand. It was moderately successful, but never did anything better than break even, if at that, you know. So it was time consuming. And as that was starting to, you know, we were still publishing it, but we were thinking, hey, you know, now that we're in here, why don't we try putting a catalog on the newsstand? And we just started thinking about that. We weren't we didn't have anything in mind really. But then I was at an antique store in Branson, Missouri, and I'd heard of the old Whole Earth catalogs. And I picked one up and was looking through it, and I was like, man, this would be a really cool concept to kind of bring some of this idea up to date, not the, you know, it was definitely a totally different, you know, somewhat the same, but totally different, you know. But it was kind of the idea of having a catalog combined with magazine content, I guess, was kind of the idea behind it. So yeah, and at the same time, our magazine was kind of struggling. So that kind of was a perfect time to switch, because the magazine was kind of struggling. The catalog, the whole seed catalog, as soon as it hit the newsstand, it did really well. The magazine did average for a magazine. It sold fine on the newsstand, but it was just kind of like an average magazine, where the whole seed catalog, for some reason, it's still one of the best sellers on the newsstand every spring. People really love it. And that's just mostly it's our customers, our biggest, our audience is still our customers just ordering it, but it does really well on the newsstands as well. And as far as the starting idea, what kind of got me to launch it was also, I noticed the Bass Pro Shops, they had a catalog a number of years ago on the newsstand. I don't know if they still do, but it was on the newsstand. I was like, hey, here's a catalog on a newsstand. And that gave me a little bit of the push to think, hey, I should give this a try. Actually, there's already a catalog in the newsstand, because before that, I didn't know if it was even possible. But when I seen their catalog, I thought, hey, this is possible. Let's try doing a catalog on the newsstand. And that's kind of where it all started. And that was one of the things we did that basically started right away and worked. Unlike the magazine, which was a slow go, the catalog was an instant success as far as people wanting it. It was like, as soon as it was published, it was like everybody wanted it, as far as our customers and gardeners in general.
And so what year was the first one that you published?
Ooh, the first whole seed catalog. Now I'm trying to remember the year. It's been a number of years, but we're probably getting close to 10 years now, 8 or 10 years, something like that. But I don't remember the exact year. I should.
I know, but, right here, I've got a stack of them right here. And I think the very first one I've got here is 2015, but I'm pretty sure it might be
2015, might have been the first one, 2014 or 2015.
Yeah, either one of those. There might be one more. I think there might be one more, because I
might have been the 2014, might have been our first year, and that was about when we were phasing out of the right. It was basically the time we phased out of the magazine. The catalog took off, and we just put all our energy into the catalog every year.
Yeah. So about how many did you print to start with versus where you're at
the
today?
First year, I think we printed about 60,000-70,000, something like that. And this year, I think we're up to like 225,000 or so.
Oh, that's quite a bit. That's nice. And they're pretty much selling out too. I mean, I know that
they usually pretty much sell out. Last year, Barnes and Noble, told us that told our agent that for the spring season, the whole seed catalog on their magazine racks was the #2 bestseller on the magazine racks last winter spring season. So
yeah, and that was one of the really cool things too, is that I'd always be ordering mine, especially these early ones that I got through your website and everything. But eventually, when I'm going to my actual local store, that I have to see it on the magazine shelf versus, we're going to find it online. And again, like you said, with Barnes and Noble too. So yeah, it's really one of the great things, like I said, that to look forward to each year when it comes to looking up seeds and what varieties you might want to be growing for the next season. So could you tell us just a little bit more about like what you guys offer inside of the whole seed catalog?
So when you open a whole seed catalog, what we try to include is not only the varieties and photos. Every year we get new photos. So over half the photos are replaced every single year. And our goal is to replace most of them every single year. But this last year, we were probably around 70-75% new photographs. So that's our goal every year, is to get more and more new photographs. But besides the photographs and the varieties and the short descriptions, we also try to include a lot of stories and recipes. We want to kind of take people behind the scenes and show people our growers and, but the biggest portion is educating people about the unique varieties, the story of the white marigold or the orange watermelon or the red sunflower, taking people behind the scenes and learning about the people that first collected them or developed them or found them or the cultures they come through. The fish pepper, is a great African-American heirloom that we tell the story of this year, and on and on, the story of so many different Japanese vegetables and, varieties that might be like the local millionaire tomato, which comes from just right in this area, telling that story. So it's stories close to home, and then, stories all over the globe, try to bring those to life and connect farmers and gardeners through our food. That's the whole, goal of it, is connecting people and showing people how we can all, have delicious and beautiful gardens, and sharing information. That's the big purpose of it, besides the seeds, is to show people the story of the heirloom, I guess.
Yeah, and I kind of, again, like you said, some of those behind the scene things that are going on with the company. You also really like highlight a lot of your the individuals in your company who are helping put together all of your different offerings that you have through your company as well.
Yeah,
And
definitely try to show the growers and, some of our staff, of course, our kids, our family, neighbors, whoever. We try, and, just cool seed collectors and people that, where we collected the seeds, different places, try to include all of that. And of course, recipes from our kitchen here and, simple tips, and people they love information. They love photos. I mean, people love to look at stuff in the wintertime and dream about spring, I think. So.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely one of the more eye-catching offerings of the catalog is all of your wonderful photos. And again, like you mentioned too, is you get a lot of the kids involved with a lot of your pictures and everything too. So there's nothing cooler than seeing, like, your son holding a big giant sunflower, you know.
Oh yeah,
And
the kids love to be out, especially when the weather is like these beautiful spring days we've been having. The kids love to get out there and get growing stuff and trying stuff. And of course, sampling, that's about their favorite, when things are ripe.
yeah, exactly. And I think another one of the cool pictures they see is like the kids holding up those big giant carrots.
Yeah, those are fun to grow. That's always, we have some more growing this year. I'm hoping we'll get, like, every year we seem to get bigger than the year before. And this year we're hoping to get some massively larger than last year. So that's our goal. We have a bunch of them in, and we'll see what we get to this year.
So now, besides the catalogs and all of that sort of stuff that most people are really familiar with when it comes to Baker Creek, you guys do also a bunch of other type of things too, events and sort of things like that. What are some of the events that you guys are doing here? I know
besides having like our village here and our farm open, the seed store and restaurant and a few other shops here, besides having that open weekdays, we also host festivals here on the farm, and then also in California, the Heirloom Expo. So the festivals we have here on the farm, this year we're doing like in April and May, 2 days events in April and May, and then we do a 2-day event in October this year on the farm here in Missouri. And the 2 spring events are selling really well already. I mean, they're going to be sold out really soon. And the Expo is also selling really well this year. It's the tickets for the event, and we price the tickets as cheaply as possible and try to get as many people as we can. And the biggest challenge is for our events here in Missouri, we literally run out of parking space, which we can handle about 2,000 cars or so, about maybe 2,500 cars. But once that's gone, it's gone. The good thing about the Heirloom Expo in California, I think it's the 12th, September 12th, 13, and 14. The good thing about there, it's at a fairgrounds right in Ventura, California. So we have pretty much unlimited parking. So that's the good thing about that event. And we're really excited about, we love Santa Rosa and Northern California, but we're really excited about Ventura and being right next to the beach, and also the warmer climate in Southern California. We're excited to bring in a lot more of the fruiting crops, a lot more things like dragon fruit and tropical fruits, as well as it's a better climate right near there for tomatoes and peppers and other fruiting vegetables. So we will still have the greens and flowers and pumpkins, and everything else on display, and garden speakers. But we're excited. We're missing the old location, but we are excited about being in Ventura, and the convenience of being right near the LAX airport will also be convenient for our staff as well, and people flying in from around the U.S. and beyond.
Yeah, I know. After getting one of my first catalogs there back in 2015, I just knew that I was going to make it my goal to get to an heirloom exposition. So my first one I got to go to there in Santa Rosa was 2017, and just was really one of the more fantastic things. If you love gardening, if you love growing, it's just one of those events that you just really have to get out and go see. And I was hooked right then from the first year that I got to go there, and made some videos of that. So if anybody's watching right now too, you can also check down in the description. We'll have some links to some of those urban gardener videos we did at those 2017, 2018, and 2019 heirloom expositions. But so 2019 was the last heirloom exposition that we did. So if everybody probably understands that the next year was 2020, and the pandemic came crushing all of our hopes and dreams when it came to being able to attend events like that. How was that for you guys, dealing with that when it came to having to put that on hold, put on some
kind of depressing. Yeah, kind of depressing. And we should have probably had one last year, but when you have to plan a year in advance, you don't know what the situation is going to be on the ground. So we didn't want to start too early because it's too much effort going into the event. I mean, we probably could have had one last September, but it's with such a long plan out schedule, we decided to play it safe and be careful. We also had way too much work on our hands. We moved into a new warehouse, and we had so many projects going. So it was kind of a blessing not to take on an extra project till we were fully moved. So that was the other reason. But we're so excited to have it going again, because I have not been to the West Coast since 2019. So I'm beyond the Expo. I'm excited just to get back out to the West Coast and be able to travel up and down the coast again. I've only been, in the center part of the country for the last few years, and super excited to, see all the growers and farmers and the produce, and bring everything back together again. Hopefully bigger and better. We're lining up people more than ever, it seems, right now, and a lot of enthusiasm. I think partly simply because we haven't had the Expo in years. I think a lot of people are going to want to come again, simply because people that might have came for, when you came every year and then you have this long gap, it's all of a sudden it gives you extra energy to get there, simply because you want to see people again and see the people that you met last time, as well as all the new people, and see what's changed and all the new items and fruits and vegetables, and try things. It's always, that's part of the event, is tasting and trying everything. So
yeah, with that time off, for such a great event, especially for those who've already attended prior, there's just this real big buildup of anticipation when it comes to being able to see this next event too, which actually, other than the break, I believe it's going to be the 10th.
It's the 10th one this year, so it's hard to believe. Yeah, it's a 10th one. But yeah, we're excited. We're excited. The fairgrounds is literally right on the beach, so perfect location. So that's the challenge with California. If you're inland very far, you get very hot, and most people don't want to go to an event where it's going to be 105 out. So the nice thing is, the temperature will stay cool and consistent where we are. So, we're in Ventura, so that's one of the. It's going to be a little cooler than even Santa Rosa. So. We won't have any more of the 95-degree days. We should max out about 80.
Yeah, it does feel it gets pretty warm up there too as well. But I know for us here, we've already got our tickets. We're ready to go. We can't wait to check out this 10th, 10th anniversary.
Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting.
Exposition. Yeah. And again, like you said too, being able to go to a bigger location like Los Angeles. Los Angeles is one of my favorite places to visit, and I think it's a really great opportunity. Los Angeles is just one of those areas where, for one, I've got a lot of friends down there. They can garden practically year round.
Yeah, definitely.
It's probably one of the coolest garden cities there are, with all the different, community gardens that they have, there's just a lot of gardening enthusiasm when it comes to Los Angeles. And I think that's going to be a really great and interesting heirloom exposition to take part in this year and see how well it does, because again, it's really one of those events that's, if you're into gardening, you have a passion for gardening and growing things, then it's really one of those places that you have to see. So again, really looking forward to that. One of the things I wanted to ask you about too, though, that Baker Creek does, and I see this often as I follow along with you guys on your different social media, is that you guys have a lot of different worldwide causes that you guys I think you donate profits and all of that sort of stuff too. Could you tell us a little bit more about Baker Creek's mission when it comes to that?
I guess the mission of the company overall is, we want to make make a living, but any excess funds that come into the company beyond stuff we need for day to day, purchasing seeds, paying employees, paying for the electric bills, taking care of our staff here well, and all that kind of stuff. Beyond that, we want to put back into causes where, people are, especially disaster type situations, but also things like school gardens and, orphanage gardens and community gardens, projects to help feed people, projects where people, especially situations like in Syria and Turkey and various other projects in various other places over the years. There's these desperate situations where, any little bit of money we can raise, or people can, and not just money, but, products or whatever that we can get to these locations, makes such a big difference. We're working with several projects, I think 3 different projects in Afghanistan. For example, one's a gardening project, one's a feeding project, and then another is more of a rescue project where people are being rescued out of Afghanistan who are in danger there now. So all 3 of these projects, for example, are doing amazing work. They're all small, projects, relatively small, but they all have, huge needs. So it's like there's so many people doing really cool things and life changing. If you can, if you're being hunted by, if you were formerly working on the wrong side and now you're suddenly being hunted, being able to get out of a country is a really big deal for your family. Or if you're, in a situation like in the Turkish earthquake, literally, even a blanket is a big help in situations like that. So, I mean, that's kind of, as you see these things in the news, we want to try to do something to, here and there, working with whoever we know in each location, or and so forth, trying to move forward. And even locally, we try to do a lot of local, as we can, seed related projects and so forth.
Yeah, and that's also, again, kind of back to the heirloom exposition real quickly, though, too, is that one of the things that I know that you guys do with that is that, again, with kind of profits and those sort of things above expenses, you donate to school programs, which is a real big deal, too. And I remember the 3 different years that I got to go there is that you have these really cool school days where all the schools get to come out and to check out all of the things that you have to offer there, especially all the cool, squashes and pumpkins and watermelons and things that you have all over the place. And it's kind of one of those really fun days when it comes to the Heirloom Expo, is what you guys do for the children.
No, it's definitely fun to have, the children come through like the Heirloom Expo and see it and taste it. It's, you have the children come through and that's super exciting. You have everybody in between. You have the people, I've had people like that were in their 90s that came up and, were so excited to be there. And they told me they hadn't seen anything like this, since the 40s. And then they thought for a few minutes or a few seconds. And then they told me, well, come to think about it, even the fair in the 40s wasn't this good. They tell me about like the state fair in California, seeing the produce and stuff. And then they're like, then they tried to think back and then they would tell you stuff like that. And it's like, it really made their day. And it's, it's really neat to have people that have been around and seen fairs for, almost 100 years and then tell you how this is, if you're a gardener, I guess if you're a gardener, the Heirloom Expo is something people are really into. If you're more into the rides and stuff, that's probably not your thing. But for gardeners out there, this is kind of an event that, no matter what your age is, if you're into plants and food and all of that type of stuff, connecting with farmers, seeing where your food comes from, it definitely is, a fun event. I mean, it definitely makes you think, and it also entertains you at the same time.
Yeah, and again too, it's really awesome to see all those kids running around and just completely fascinated with all the different things. So I'm sure that really gives them some inspiration for future gardening on their part too. And I know that again too, one of the things your mission there too with the Heirloom Expo is to be able to help fund school gardening programs.
Definitely, yeah. We try to work with educational programs. We actually haven't finalized. Since we moved, we haven't finalized who the school or educational projects are going to be in Southern California, but we're still working on that. Our team's been reaching out to different groups, and there's so much interest. It's just trying to narrow it down. But there's definitely a lot of incredible projects right there in Ventura, but also in the county and surrounding counties. So we're really excited to move forward with educational projects and getting children there again, and doing much the same, but also, with some new, in a new location with new organizations. We will have some of the same organizations, but new organizations as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how what changes and what doesn't, and also, what kind of produce we can get there. That's one of the things I'm really excited about, is we can get into way more subtropical type fruits as well as, the typical garden produce.
Yeah, that's going to be really great to see. Again, really, really looking forward to that. And again, if anybody's watching and you have a school program and you're looking for a little bit of something, maybe some seeds or something, I'd encourage you to reach out to Baker Creek, because again, that's one of the things I really know about your company is how much you guys really put an effort into being able to help out and do those sort of things when it comes to garden education. Now,
it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, educating and connecting and, sharing it is fun. And the whole thing about the expo, it's, you meet so many other seed collectors and seed companies. And, when people come, it's not just us there, but, there's multiple seed companies and seed collectors and seed groups, as well as all sorts of associated, groups, whether it's a group that does biodynamics or permaculture or something you don't know anything about, something you can gather information on. That's what I always enjoy. Beyond just what I know, you can, even if you're not going to ever do it, it's always fun to learn about these other projects and what people are doing. It connects everybody together, kind of. So.
Yeah, and that's again, thanks for reminding me in a sense too, is because that's one of the other things I think I really like about what you do there with that exposition too. You'd think it's Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company, that you're the seed company that's going to be there, but you welcome all of these different other seed companies into show and exhibit the different things that they have and all of that too. So it's not all about Baker Creek when it comes down to what you're doing in that exhibition. So
yeah, we're trying to tell the story. Yeah, we're trying to tell the story of basically food or vegetables and flowers and fruits in America. At least the produce side of food. We're trying to tell as much of that story as we can, at least the traditional part of that story. How it used to be, and bring it back to life. Bring a traditional gardening and farming back to life. I guess that's the whole point of it. And as many different organizations and companies and collectors and farmers as we can bring into one place. And that's the whole purpose, I guess, of the seed company in general. And our work is, that's how I see it anyway, is, connecting farmers and gardeners and seed savers and, meeting people at the table and learning from different cultures and areas and countries and even states. Like people here in Missouri, we go out to California and we learn something new, and vice versa. There's always new tips and techniques and recipes. I mean, every part of the country, and even each state, from Southern California to Northern California, is so many different recipes, and it's like a whole different culture in many ways. So
yeah, real, similar to what we're doing with this show, is we're working to kind of have a kind of a collaborative type of mission here in order to highlight other people in the gardening community and do all of that. As far as what we're doing here, you got a similar type of mission when it comes to Baker Creek, and it's really, really something. It's why we really wanted to reach out to you and have you here on our show to talk about all of this really cool stuff when it comes to Baker Creek. And I really appreciate your time here and giving us such a great interview talking about all of the different offerings of your company And I just want to kind of end with, the Baker Creek and yourself, you're a real family oriented company and everything. And I do believe you just welcomed in a brand new member to your family, didn't you?
We do. Our newest baby was born about 1 month ago. So Levi, and so he's just a month old. So we got plenty of work on our hands for the next few weeks, that's for sure, or next few months and years actually. So definitely going to be fun to let him this summer, once he's able to try things in the garden, to be able to try the different things. Kids always love that, especially when they're real little like that. When they're 6, 7, 8, 10 months old, they love trying fruits and vegetables.
Right on. That's really awesome. So really, congratulations to you and Emily and the kids and everything.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and
with your
appreciate
new
being here. It's an honor, and can't wait to see you in California in a few months.
Absolutely. We definitely look forward to it, and we'll definitely talk with you again when we get down there and see how everything's going. And again, thank you so much, Jere, for joining with us. We really appreciate your time, and we'll let you go so you can get back to that new baby, and we'll see you later.
Sure, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. What a wonderful time. What a wonderful interview with Jere Gettle. Again, one of our favorite seed companies out there, produces such really awesome varieties with all the different heirlooms that they offer through not only their regular catalog, but the whole seed catalog. Just one of those really cool things, as I mentioned in the interview, that we all really love and look forward to each year as it comes in the mail. And now if you are out and about and don't get it in the mail, you can also go to your newsstands and find it there as well too. Such a wonderful catalog and a wonderful company, as we talked about there. Thanks to Jere for joining with us there for this really great interview. And also thank you to Dash and Marie of Bloom Where You're Planted, joining us for our Channel of the Week interview this week. We've had a really great show today. I hope that all of you have really enjoyed our show, and be sure to give us a big thumbs up, hit that like button for this show. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Urban Gardener channel and follow along with all of our garden adventures here on the Urban Gardener. And again, as I mentioned, share, send some links and share our different show links to different garden groups and your garden friends and that sort of stuff, and help us get the word out there about this really great show. We've got such wonderful guests like Jere today, and we've got so many more lined up for future shows. And so next week too, we'll be having with us author and project founder at the Great Grow Along, Lamanda Joy, will be joining us as our featured guest. We're also going to have for our Channel of the Week, Wicked Awesome Gardening, and we'll also be following with Little Green Shoot on Instagram. So that's going to be a really fun show next week. So be sure to tune in next week. And as well too, another great way to support our show is to support our sponsor, Ivy Organics. So you can go to ivyorganics.com and shop along in their shop that they have there. They have a great fertilizer, 3-in-1 plant guard, and some other plant offerings as well too. And be sure to use our our promo code GROW10, GROW10, and save 10% off. So again, be sure to join us again this next week for another great show. So from all of us here at Let's Get Growing, have a great week, and we'll see you next Saturday.